Hello everybody and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. This week we talk to Rowena Millward about the art of unlearning and relearning. As technology changes and as workplaces change, this is going to become more and more important for all of us, and it's a great topic. Rowena has a lot of great enthusiasm and it's an amazing conversation, so enjoy and have a magical week. Hello everybody and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for today. Today we have another amazing guest, so we've got a great conversation in store. We're excited to get into it, but before we do that, I think we've got to check in with the team and see how they're going. So I'll start with you, John. How are you going this week?
Hey, Jez. Hey, everyone. This week I've been looking at spreadsheets and data, so my eyes are square, my brain is fried, my will for living has been sucked out of me, but it's Friday, so it's going to be great.
Yeah, that's tough, but well, good effort though, John. That sounds tough.
So much envy. So much envy.
Oh, shoot me now.
Alan, how are you going this week? What's been up?
Oh, I'm looking forward to a quiet weekend, Jez. Yeah, Renee and a couple of our girls are off to visit friends in Wagga in Sydney. So, yeah, it's just Gracie and I home alone this weekend. So, yeah, we'll be enjoying some quiet time, maybe getting out on the water.
Nice. Take it easy though, Al.
Al, are you still just walking on the water or have you changed?
Well, the water is amazing up here at the moment. It is so blue and clear that, yeah, I actually want to go snorkeling, but I can't find anybody keen enough to go in with me at the moment. But you never know. I'm not giving up just yet.
I'm pretty sure Rowena is a devotee of snorkeling.
Actually, I do love snorkeling, but I have to tell you, more so when it's a bit warmer.
That's what most people are saying to me at the moment.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Al's up in Queensland, so it is always warmer.
Yeah,
that's true. It's always snorkeling time.
It is.
And Al's also into ice baths. So, Rowena, I think we're all more on your side. Al doesn't mind any temperature, so. Grahame, how are you going this week?
I'm good, Jez. Thanks. Sorry. I now have this image of Al snorkeling in a bathtub full of ice. Wow. Happy Friday, everyone. I've had a great week. I spent most of the week at home, had a few days on my own because Madam was in NZ. Quick trip to Canberra yesterday, back home again today. Sun is shining sometimes, and we've had more rain, so life's good.
Nice. And Danette, how was your NZ trip? Do you want to give us a little bit of a brief telling of what you were doing?
It was so awesome. So we went to this place called Mana Retreat in the Coromandels. Divine. So basically we did restorative yoga, which is lying on the floor, being wrapped in blankets and having cushions all around you and falling asleep and drooling. It was the best. So we did that several times a day, ate beautiful food. And now I'm like, but I managed to pick up a cold on the way back. So I'm like, but it was divine. Highly recommend restorative yoga. So good.
I'm excited about the drooling part in particular because that sounds like a lot of fun.
There was a lot of chorus of snoring in the room, which was awesome.
A snorus.
How was your week?
Oh, good. I was just going to say, Mum, that sounds as relaxing as John's week. Sounds like you both had a very regenerative
Poor John.
week. No, my week's been good. I did some stand-up earlier in the week. I'm working on a project that I don't think I can talk about yet, but in September, I'll be able to tell everybody, but exciting stuff, hopefully. So we'll see, fingers crossed, but it is to do with comedy. So I'll keep people posted about that. And Rowena, how are you going? How's your week been?
I'm good. I've actually had a really busy week. Travel. So I was down in Melbourne, but it's been frantic because I go on holidays tomorrow. So I'm actually off to Queenstown tomorrow with the family. So you know how when you're going away, there's always, how do I get 2 weeks of work done in one? So, because I'm not even taking my laptop. I'm going to be disciplined, leave the laptop at home and just enjoy the beauty of Queenstown.
So
and Rowena, there's a few of the group that are still over there in Queenstown. So you
Really?
probably run into a few of them.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah,
Oh,
who is that?
excellent.
Amazing. Well, that's exciting. Exciting New Zealand podcast. So for all our New Zealand listeners, we've got 2 correspondents in 2 weeks for you. So that's exciting. Now for people that maybe being introduced to Rowena for the first time, I just want to say a little bit about you, and then maybe you can pick up where I leave off. So Rowena helps organizations develop the future skills they need now. She's also a best-selling author with her 2 books, Insights to Enlighten for Living, Leading, and Marketing, and Uncomfortable Growth, Own Your Reinvention. So amazing to have you on. We're so excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Rowena, is there anything else you want to let people know before we jump into the topic today, or should we dive in?
So probably, just the small nuances that might make this interesting also for all of us on this podcast is I've got a business background, but I'm really into psychology. And understanding psychology, how it actually shows up in people leadership and performance and capability. So I like to kind of bring all the mind piece with the people piece and the work piece together. So that really is my passion and how I love to help organizations.
Amazing. Well, I think that leads us perfectly into the topic for today, which when you sent it through, I thought is a great one because it's something that we've touched on a little bit, but we haven't really locked in on before. So I think that this is a great time to really focus in on it. And it sounds like you're the exact right person to tell us about it. So Rowena, what was the topic? And tell us a bit about why you chose it as well.
Yeah, so it's about unlearning and relearning. And the reason why I chose it is because I think it's such an important piece in today's world. So we all know that change is getting faster. There's multiple disruptions, so there's technology, but that's just one piece. And we've all seen the big jump with ChatGPT in AI. So we're all sitting there going, wow, that's coming. But then there's also so many other pieces around diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also sustainability and how we think about our world as a whole. And the thing that struck me is to be able to make sense of all of these big shifts happening simultaneously. We really need to take ownership individually of how we unlearn and relearn, so we're ready to make sense of what could be, but also tip it into the positive side rather than the negative side. So that's why this topic I feel is so important.
Amazing. Well, that's perfect. And there's so much to touch on. We've got some great questions here. So I'm just going to dive straight in. I might start with Grahame. So Grahame, what was your question and why did you pick it?
I have no idea, Jess. But that in itself was a great question. So thank you for just dropping me in at the deep end. Rebecca, hi. Rowena. It's going to be a good afternoon. And it ends in an A. So it's like in between, we jumble the letters up. But I can unlearn how to pronounce your name incorrectly and then learn how to do it right. It'll just take a month or so. So my question was just, you comment about ChatGPT and AI and the fact that we have no idea from one week to the next what's coming up. There's a lot of us like to think we do, but reality is probably not. And I love the idea of unlearning and relearning, or just unlearning and learning, because I wonder how much of it is sort of relearning and just learning new stuff. But anyway, my question was sort of with all of the noise and distraction, with all of the chaos around us at the moment, how can we more readily identify what we need to unlearn?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And
thanks, Rowena.
And a really challenging one, right? Because one of the things that makes that hard to answer is that we've learned so many things through our whole life, right? So we're all the product of our experiences, and there are so many different variations within that. So I like to look at it through the lens of what are the important values, or what's the person I want to become? And if we use kind of that as the end point to then look back and say, okay, if that's the person I want to become, what, who am I? What am I now?
Yep.
How can I bring those together to focus on the pieces of learning that I know I need to step into that future?
Thank you. And that also suggests, I think, that we need to build on our self-awareness, and we also need to make time to stop. Because I think for a lot of us, identifying what's important to us, what our values are, doesn't happen when we're on the treadmill.
So true. And I think being mindful that we are going to have to intentionally make space is such a critical part of this, because the world is just going to keep demanding more and more, right? So all of our digital devices, constant 24/7 on, the non-stop pace is just going to keep going faster and faster.
Yep.
Which is why it's so beautiful. Like Danette went to a beautiful retreat where you just disconnected. But without space, we're not going to have the ability to be able to say, okay, here's what I intentionally choose to unlearn and relearn, because I can make space for it into my mind, and then that can translate through to my behaviors.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Love that. And I think that actually feeds really nicely into John's question. So I might go, John, what was your question and why did you pick it?
Okay, thanks, Jess. Yeah, look, I love the idea of the unlearn and relearn stuff. I think that's, we're constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly challenging ourselves, and I think that's fantastic. But as you said, change is getting faster. Everything's going so quickly. The world's getting smaller. How do we keep up with it all? Because that's the next challenge.
Yeah, and I think my perspective on this is no one can keep up with everything. If I even step back into the world of work, and when I started the world of work, I started my first job, Procter & Gamble in marketing, as a whippersnapper back in 1994. And at the time, my manager and the marketing manager and the marketing director, those senior people, they knew end-to-end marketing.
Yeah.
Because it didn't fundamentally change that much. It was more about the same model and how do you optimize it. Now, marketing has exponentially grown because of the different executions in technology, and no one has end-to-end knowledge anymore. And I say this a lot when I go into organizations, because don't even try and get end-to-end knowledge. You will need specialists, but what you need to be really good at is how to connect all the pieces. And I think when, your question around how do we keep up, it's about going, what are the pieces that I'm going to really invest in and focus on, because it's what I care about. It fits in with my expertise and passions, but also it's the piece where I can contribute. And then how do I surround myself with the people who have the other pieces? So I think there's a bit of a shift from, I can kind of get my head around all of it. Well, you might be able to be aware of all of it, but you won't be able to really know all of it. And I think we just have to recognize now that it's going to be about bringing lots of different pieces together. But what is the piece that you really want to be that expert in and really understand with depth and relevance to not only today, but where it could go in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, where do you want to focus and become that subject matter expert? But then, the village to raise a child type mentality of who else do you need around you?
So true. And that's hard because we don't know what other people know.
Yep.
So, one of the things I teach in organizations now is how do you spend time understanding what other people know, so you understand how to connect what you know with them. Because we so quickly jump to quick solutions without understanding the breadth and the depth of knowledge. Yep. And I think that mindset piece of going, I don't know it all, but I know other people know parts, but where do they fit in? That's going to be one of the most critical things that we have to learn for the future.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. Thanks, Rowena.
I love your village analogy because I think that's It's so true. And that village now that we're part of, it may be here in Australia or New Zealand, or it could be from anywhere.
Yeah.
So that village piece, navigating the village or finding your village for what you do is actually such a critical part of making sense and contributing to the world that we're evolving into.
Yeah, okay. Judy, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, great question, great answer there. It's a great way to look at it as well. Makes it feel slightly less overwhelming. So that's good. I might go to Al, because Al, your question sort of touches on this a little bit in a kind of different way. So Al, what was your question and why'd you pick it?
Thanks, Jez. Yes, I guess following on from that idea of the village, I guess my language would be that tribe that we had growing up, whether that was our parents, teachers, our school. We learnt so many patterns from them. And I like what you're saying already there, Rowena, around who do you want to become? And my question was, do we need to unlearn those tribal patterns?
Yeah.
And if so, is this something that we can do on our own? And I guess the reason I have that last piece is I find when I want to do something different, the rest of the tribe pulls me back because they liked it the way it was, even though it wasn't really working.
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. I'm going to start just by sharing what I've observed from my kids, right? So coming to your question, I think one of the things that's really important is to, we've got our own tribe, and it's often based on, kind of the point in time or our generation when we were born. So I'm Gen X, and, we tend to have some specific values as Gen X. But I look at my kids who, I've got two girls who are 16 and 13. And just the other day, they were talking about school and the hierarchy and what it means to them is so different to what it means to me. And let me just explain this a little bit. So, they were just talking about how the teachers reinforce rules that to them make no sense. And they're not against rules per se, right? But for them, it very much comes back to the value. So they were talking about, they've got school uniforms and they still don't have pants, for girls. It's a girls' school. And they're just like, this is so silly, there's no point, we're really cold. And then they were talking about the way communication is managed, and it's a really good school, so I really like the school and they're happy in the school. But it was really interesting to hear them say how if you've got a concern with the teacher, then you have to go to your year head rather than having a conversation direct with the teacher. And they all want to have conversations direct, so it's just really interesting to see the shift in generations. And that's one of the things I think that we need to be really mindful of to solve the problems coming up. We need all the generations to come together. And there's the knowledge and the experiences and the wisdom that comes with more experience in some of the older generations. And I have actually a whole soapbox about how we should be utilizing those older generations so much better. But it's bringing that together with the younger generations who do think differently, who do see the world, who are going to be in the world longer than us. And so with tribe, I think we need to be really wary of what are the beliefs of our tribe, but not stay just within that, to actually have the conversations, to challenge across those different perspectives, across the different generations. And how do we find really what is the value that we can all hold on to? So if I go back to my daughters, the value for them is about co-creation. They just think that it should be a two-way conversation to make sense of it, whether you're 16 or whether you're the school principal. But the values and often the education system is still very much around, this is the way we do things. This is the uniform. We're not going to change it because it's about the school and what it represents with tradition and history. And they're just like, that makes no sense to me. And And so that's where I think we can get better with appreciating what sits behind some of these tribal, connections, but also how do we open it up into a much bigger conversation to find what is the value we can all hold on to, which in this case, it could be about respect, because the uniform and all that sort of stuff and the way you talk is about respect. But there's a different way to deliver that with the younger people who want to have that openness and transparency and direct discussion.
Oh, thanks for that, Rowena. That really challenges that belief that I often hear of young people these days, as opposed to we can learn from them. We don't know what they know.
Yeah, and but even how they connect as their own tribe. That's what I find fascinating. I think there's gold in all of the tribes. But we don't pair back to where's the value underpinning their perspective across the generations, and then go, okay, well, what's the value that we can all buy into, and how does that then manifest in the way that we co-create together?
Thanks for that, Rowena.
Pleasure.
Amazing. Yeah. Love that answer as well. And it's a great way to look at it as well, Rowena. I think we'll probably have to have another conversation, where we talk about this intergenerational thing, because that sounds like a great conversation for another time. But let's jump on to Danette's question. So Danette, what was your question? Why'd you pick it?
Thanks, Jess. Just getting myself organised here. So my question was, how can we help ourselves and others to unlearn and relearn? And I'm particularly mindful that, teams change, people around us change, and really for organisations and individuals to keep moving forward, we need to not only unlearn and relearn ourselves, but we also need to support others in a space that is often really uncomfortable for them. And I'm dealing with a number of clients where people are struggling to see that what they're doing now is not actually going to serve them in the future. So that was sort of the purpose of the question.
Yeah, it's a really great question. To step back a little bit, I do think, as we spoke before, we need to let people understand that they'll need space. So, because we're so busy at work and there's higher levels of burnout and exhaustion, when I go into organizations, I was just running, I was in Melbourne to run some key training for a big client of mine. And it was for senior leaders around a big transformation. And it was for a couple of hours. And people were like, oh, I don't have that time. And I'm like, but this is the least amount of time to actually help you to understand the concepts. And so I think we've got this real time tension, where people go, I don't have time, my bucket is full, my head's full, but you need time to be able to digest. And I think, Danette, you're talking about the discomfort. I like to sometimes reframe that for people and say, a lot of your discomfort, it's not just coming from the unknown of what's new, it's coming from the fear of being left behind. And I think that's true for a lot of people, because there's so much going on. And they know, there's all the headlines around the future of work and how many jobs are going to be replaced. It's pretty scary, right? And people are feeling overwhelmed. So they're like, I just can't deal with it. But actually, that's feeding their discomfort and fear of being left behind. So I like to say to people, you need to make space. It's about quality, not quantity. Okay, if we think about how we unlearn and relearn, it's making space and really focusing and not just doing a token effort, to give it your all, to not have other things going on, because then we know it's just another thing in the background, right? It's not really going to shift. And so I think helping people to understand the fear of being left behind is actually worse than the fear of learning, but you deserve this space. You need this space. We're human. We're not robots. We can't just keep going on, accelerated mode. So, you need this, and you deserve this, and you will be better as a person and better at whatever it is you do that you're learning by doing this for you.
I love that answer. And Rowena, one of the things they said at the retreat was sort of on day 3, when everyone was feeling way more relaxed, and that is, they said, this is actually how you're supposed to feel.
Yeah.
What you're feeling normally is not normal. And it feeds into that space bit about how important. And interestingly, there's a group chat, and the group chat, someone posted, this is really weird. I went to the gym today. It was the best session I've ever had in ages. And a lot of people were reflecting on how much more energy they came back with by creating that space to be able to just rest and relax. And I really like it about that focus on, where's your passion, and making sure that you intentionally start to grow. So great answer, and loving this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. I think I want to kind of maybe jump on a slightly different tact, or another way to kind of look at this with my question, which was, learning something new can be daunting. I always find that this is something that I always sometimes can struggle with when I feel like I have to sit down and actually learn something new. Sometimes I feel like I'm back at school, sometimes it can have that sort of feeling to me. What are some ways to encourage us to feel more open to learning?
Make it fun for yourself. So I'm a big believer in that you have to hack yourself, and how we learn looks different for everyone. So one of the things I've been playing around with, and I love the idea of playing, how to figure out how you learn, like make it fun, make it light, make it enjoyable. I've been doing what I call free flow Fridays. So I just do things that I love to do, but helps me to learn. So for example, this podcast, I'm so good it was on a Friday, chatting with all you really interesting people. But I'll often, go to the gym in the morning, and then I might go to a cafe and just spend a couple of hours at the cafe. I might want to be reading stuff online, or just thinking, maybe doing some personal writing. But that for me is really therapeutic. And I think we can probably all relate to the fact that when we don't have to learn something fast, your point on going back to school, I remember cramming. I was the last minute crammer, right? Not good. And it was in my head for that 1 hour or 2 hours of the exam, and then it was straight out again. So when we, make learning fun, when it's what we're interested in, when we give ourselves space and make it enjoyable, like I love my special coffee, and I've got one of those really yummy muffins as well that I give myself a treat on because I've been to the gym. But it also, that's where I get my best thinking. And now I'm so protective of my Fridays, because it's something that's working for me, but it's something that also is bringing out such better thinking than if I just kind of repeated Friday like a Thursday, Monday to Thursday at my desk. So yeah, I think you really have to hack yourself. Now I'm mindful that some people have full-time jobs in terms of having to be, on a schedule, but even doing stuff on the weekend, or reading fiction. I do so much stuff 9 to 5 in the work week, but fiction I find is really beautiful escapism, but it also builds my thinking around people and psychology and empathy and how that can come back. So again, finding stuff that brings you joy, that helps you to learn the things that will help you become the person you want to. Having that all line up, I think, is what's most powerful.
Yeah, amazing. That's really good. And I think we had 2 more questions in the chat, but I think they've more or less been sort of touched on and answered. So I might end with one that I think is kind of fun, which is where you are now with this free flow Friday idea, which I love. Can you tell us maybe about a little bit of the change that you've seen in yourself, maybe in your professional life as well, since you've made this change to sort of being more focused on giving yourself this time?
Yeah, I think at the start, it felt like I was wasting time a bit, or this wasn't as productive, right? When in fact, the opposite is true. because I felt like I had all these things to do in my email box, and, I needed my to-do list and I needed to chunk through it on a Friday. So I had a clear head for the weekend. But actually, that stuff's still going to be there. I can look at it on Monday. But just living in this place of positive learning. And, I've got a term that I use. I think I'm going to make it my next book. So I haven't quite finally landed on that, but I call it wonderosity. And it's having this mindset of wonder, but linking it with curiosity. And when that comes together, it doesn't feel like learning. It just feels like growing. And so that's the space. If people can figure out how to create wonderosity for themselves, then I think that's how suddenly it doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like personal growth and development, and taking you into that future you that you want to be.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, it touches on a little bit of what Danette was talking about before with, that break and then coming back and everyone's feeling more relaxed, doing the best they've done. So I think this has been a great conversation. We'll definitely have to have you back on for when the Wonderosity debuts to fully get into that. We've got a whole stack of podcasts we'll have to do with you, but I'll grab some final thoughts from people now. So Alan, I might start with you. Any final thoughts on the art of unlearning and relearning or today's conversation?
So many points I've jotted down. Thank you so much for today, Rowena. Some of the standouts for me are, who do I want to become? I love that idea of we can't be the expert. We can't know the whole system anymore. We do need others around us, and we never know what those other people know that we don't know. But thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Al. Great takeaways. Love that. And great question today. John, I'll throw to you. Any final thoughts on today's conversation or the art of unlearning and relearning?
Yeah, I've taken away quite a few things, and it's like Al, it's those questions of who's the person I want to become, what's or what is the intention of what I'm doing, or at any given point in time, what do I want to invest in, and what is the value that I want to buy into or hold on to. So it's that, I guess for me initially, it's that looking internally as to where I want to go or who I am and what I want to be, is what I'm taking away, and that hopefully will help me unlearn and relearn a few things simply about myself.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. Great takeaways and great question as well today. Thanks so much for that. Grahame, I'll throw to you. What are your final thoughts on today's conversation and the art of unlearning and relearning?
Rowena, thank you. It's been amazing. So many things. I appreciated the point about there's value in every generation, and how we bring them together. I feel particularly validated because you suggested or implied that maybe the older generations still have something to offer. So for the real oldies in the on the podcast today, thank you for that. So there, Danette. Some new acronyms, in the spirit of what do we used to have? YOLO, and then FOMO, FOSO, photo, so many things. We've now got FOBBLE, fear of being left behind, which I quite like. And I'm still trying to work out how we turn Free Flow Fridays into an acronym, because it's just, but what a great idea. What a great idea. So I'm actually going to bugger off and do that when we finish this podcast.
Oh,
thank you.
So good. Can't wait to see what comes out.
Oh, there'll be no photos. Thank you.
Love that. Yeah, I love that, Grahame. And thanks for those takeaways. That fear of being left behind is a good one. Fobble, I think we'll definitely, whatever, fobble. So thanks for that, Grahame. Danette, any final thoughts on today's conversation and the art of unlearning and relearning?
I loved it. I love the intentionality, Rowena. So people are actually thinking about themselves, what gives them joy, what keeps them curious, and that importance of space. So having come out of the retreat, like I love space anyway, having come out of it, it's really amplified how important it is for each of us to focus. And I liked your difference between the quality and the quantity. And I totally agree. It's the quality. Because if you can bring an insight because you've had that space, that will be worth more than 20 sort of tick, 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 but they're not really that deep thinking that, you know, space gives you. And imagine if everyone gave themselves a little bit more space, how beautiful the world would be in terms of energy too, because that other energy is really frantic energy. So totally enjoyed it. Yeah, there's at least another 2 podcasts you need to come back and do. We love having return guests. So thank you so much. And can I say, enjoy your space too over in Queenstown. How amazing.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I was just doing the pre-login, you know, the the flights. So I'm getting into that excitement headspace now. Holiday is here.
Amazing. And also, Rowena, before we go, any final thoughts that you have on today's conversation or the art of unlearning and relearning?
Oh, I thought there was such great thoughts that came through the questions. I guess like we all know, this is going to become more and more important because of the speed of change. And I personally just want to help people ensure they make that space, because otherwise we're just going to get burnout. And people are feeling it already, which is why it's turning into phobal. But that's so unhealthy, and it's such a loss. So, you know, I just really want people to take heart that it's, you know, we're all feeling that, but there are things that you can do that can really shift it and make learning what's going to be the future actually really positive and exciting and fulfilling.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for today's podcast. What a great episode. I feel like I've unlearned and relearned so much today. So that's good. Before we leave you today, if someone's listened to this and they've gone, wow, I've loved this, I want to find out more about Rowena, or I want to get in contact, where are the best places for them to reach out to you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn under Rowena Millward, and on my website, which is rowenamillward.com.
Amazing. And they will be in the podcast description, so people can go check those out now. To everybody that was on the podcast today, thank you so much. What a fun free flow Friday this episode was. And to everybody listening at home, have a magical week.